Shaped by the Catholic Benedictine heritage, the College of St. Scholastica provides intellectual and moral preparation for responsible living and meaningful work. Over the past 5 years, we have reflected on the Benedictine values that guide our college in pursuit of that mission. And this year, we're focusing on the Catholic part of the equation. A fairly consistent theme at our college is that while everybody embraces the Benedictine values, not everyone is as comfortable with the Catholic tradition. And while I understand some of the reasons for this, we must always remind ourselves that Benedictinism is an expression of Catholicism. Every one of those sisters that we love so much is a Catholic. It's important that we also explore and, as I hope to show, embrace and advance the Catholic dimension of our mission and heritage. This year's topic is specifically the Catholic intellectual tradition. Intellectual here does not mean that Catholicism is merely intellectual, a matter of giving intellectual assent to teachings that are taken to be true. Like all genuine religion, Catholic belief involves profound personal commitment and trust. But the Catholic tradition has always reflected on its beliefs. It has asked what its beliefs mean. That's the intellectual part. What does it mean to believe X, Y, or Z? St. Anselm, an 11th century Benedictine, by the way, famously wrote, "I do not seek to understand in order that I may believe, but I believe in order to understand." So that's the point. I believe something in order to understand what it means. In the Catholic tradition, faith and reason have been partners, not opponents. There is a wide and a well-traveled highway connecting Athens and Jerusalem. So I want to approach our topic today in this spirit of faith-seeking understanding. I want to discuss what the Catholic intellectual tradition means and why I think it is important for our work here at the college. The Catholic Church teaches, and Catholics believe, many things about God, about Jesus, about Mary, about the saints, sin, salvation, sacraments, social ethics, and more. But the Catholic tradition is not just a catalog of beliefs. There's a center of gravity. There's a focus point, and all of the other beliefs somehow are shoring up that central belief. It's instructive to realize that Catholic teachings have developed over the centuries, and the number of beliefs has grown over the 2,000 years. For example, the doctrine of the divinity of Jesus, that is, that Jesus is both God and human, that doctrine was not explicitly formulated until the Council of Nicaea in 325. Other teachings came much later. The doctrine of Papal Infallibility, the belief that under certain conditions the Catholic pontiff can speak about faith and morals without error, became an official teaching in 1870. And the doctrine of the Assumption of Mary, the belief that Mary was bodily assumed into heaven after her death, was not proclaimed until 1950. Now, this insight that Catholic teachings did not, so to speak, spring complete from heaven but have unfolded and developed and multiplied over the centuries, is important because it illustrates this idea of faith seeking progressive understanding. There is a core conviction, a central belief, a decisive personal encounter at the source of Catholicism, and the subsequent doctrines and teachings are reverberations of the original experience. So what I want to think about with you today is, what is that originating belief? What is the center of gravity? Well, I would put it this way. I'll put it as a statement. I think the originating belief of the Catholic Christian tradition is, put it this way, the God of Jesus is the true God. Now, what I mean by this is, there are a lot of candidates for God. That is the thing that's comprehensive and all-important in your self-respect, your tribe, your nation, your happiness, whether your kids wind up with good jobs. There's all kinds of, this is the most important thing in my life. At the center of the Catholic Christian tradition is this claim: the God of Jesus, that one, is the true one. The rest are false. So there is a God, and Jesus is the decisive revelation of God. God exists, and God is as Jesus said. The true God has the character that Jesus proclaimed. The God of Jesus is the true God. Now, what does this mean, and why is it important for our work as educators? In a 2006 meeting with the bishops of Switzerland, Pope Benedict XVI said, quote, Augustine repeatedly emphasized the two sides of the Christian concept of God. God is logos, and God is love. We must always keep in mind, and help others to keep in mind, these two aspects of the Christian conception of God. Close quote. In essence, this is the entire Catholic worldview. The true God, the God of Jesus, is both logos and love. So, what does this mean? What does it mean to say that God is logos? It's a Greek word. It's the Greek word from which the English word logic comes, and also the suffix ology, as in psychology or geology. The basic idea of logos is order, rationale, meaning. Just think about what logic means. Psychology is the logos of psyche, the study of the laws or principles governing mental operations. Geology is the logos of earth, the study of the history and the structure of the earth. So, to say that God is logos is to say that reality itself has fundamental principles. Reality has a rationale, it has an order, it has some meaning. It's not chaos. The universe is not random or absurd or purposeless. Reality has some point. Please understand me. Some logic. I don't mean intellectual. I just mean some order, some meaning. And God is the highest expression of that point. So God is, so to speak, the logic of reality. Now, it helps, I think, to personalize this. God as logos means not just that the universe has meaning, but it means that human existence has meaning, or more pointedly, my life has some point, some purpose, some meaning. Life is not, in the Catholic tradition, a tale told by an idiot signifying nothing. Life means something. This interpretation of God as Logos is not without challenge in the Christian tradition and in other traditions. For example, the medieval theologian Duns Scotus argued that God is entirely transcendent and cannot be regulated or bound or understood by logic or by some kind of laws. Reality is reality, and God is, well, God. God is entirely other. God can do or be anything. In this sense, God is capricious for Duns Scotus. This position is called voluntarism. Sorry for these technical terms. We'll get over them in a minute. Scotus's position that God transcends everything, can be or do anything, is called voluntarism, and the Catholic tradition, by and large, has rejected that interpretation of God in favor of Logos. Now, this difference between Logos and voluntarism, and if it helps, think of logic and will. You know, as if there are principles for this, and this is just anything it wants to be. This difference between these two interpretations of God, Logos and voluntarism, is important for understanding the Catholic worldview. And so I want to explore it for just a moment. So consider a grade school theological puzzle. Can God draw a square circle? If you say yes, you're a voluntarist. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Just means you incline toward that interpretation of God. You're a voluntarist because you're thinking, it's God. God can do anything. God is God. If you say, I don't want to be irreverent, but no, God cannot draw a square circle because a square circle is a contradiction, then you believe that God is best understood as Logos. On your interpretation, even the most powerful being cannot do what is impossible. That's what impossible means. So, on the Logos interpretation, God is the supreme example of the rules, not their chief exception. Does that make a little sense? What's at issue here? Okay, let's try one more. The Ten Commandments. Let's take them. Same deal here. Is something, let's say murder, wrong because God forbids it? Or does God forbid it because it's wrong? Get the point of the question? Is it wrong because God says it's wrong? Or is it wrong and therefore God says it's wrong? If murder is wrong just because God forbids it, then if God were to command it, murder would not only be right, it would be your obligation. But if God forbids murder because murder is morally wrong, then there's a kind of inherent wrongness to murder that divine law backs up and corroborates. So if you believe that God is Logos, then killing in the name of God is literally unthinkable, because killing is wrong, and a good God could not command it. That would be a contradiction. But if you're a voluntarist, then killing in the name of God is your duty if you think that's what God commands. Again, notice what's at issue here. Is God the great example or the great exception? The Catholic tradition has opted for the Logos interpretation of God. God is the highest expression of what it means to be, to exist, to live. Reality has a point, and God is its highest illustration. Can you hold on to that thought for a moment? The Catholic tradition has opted for the Logos interpretation of God. There's some point, and God is the highest manifestation of it, not a great big exception to it. God is love. This is the second part of the Catholic worldview. The evangelist John, who identifies God as Logos in the opening words of the gospel, later defines God simply as love. Whoever abides in love abides in God, and God in him or her. The Methodist Charles Wesley said simply, "Pure, unbounded love thou art." What does love mean? Again, trying to understand here. Love is a form of relationship, whether we're talking about puppy love or erotic love, friendship, selfless love. Love is always a way of relating to someone else. Love has both a receptive aspect and a dynamic aspect. The receptive aspect of love is what I would call empathy or empathetic response. The lover is affected by the beloved. If my spouse is happy, I share the joy. If my spouse is despondent, I share the pain. Love, in this sense, is feeling the feeling of the other. And the more sensitive I am, the better lover I am. If I say I love you, but I am completely unaffected, unchanged by your moods or by the things that are most important to you, you will wonder how sincere my love is. Empathy is the receptive aspect of love. The dynamic aspect of love has to do with how the lover treats the beloved. When we love someone, we want what is best for them, and we act in ways that increase their self-determination, their self-expression, their creativity. Think for a moment about how we raise children. Parenting, I think, is the careful cultivation of creativity in the child. On the one hand, we don't want to control our children completely by making all their decisions, for then they will not mature. On the other hand, we don't want to remove all of the rules or all of the boundaries completely and let them decide just anything, for then they will likely make tragic mistakes. In dealing with our children, we try to navigate carefully between control and license, and we try to set the boundaries for their own self-creativity as optimally as we can, so that we maximize the chances that they're going to flourish and we minimize the chances that they're going to crash and burn. My daughter Caitlin is just headed off for college, which, by the way, is a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. For me, not for her. And we'll soon see how well I've set the boundaries over the years. But my point here is that love means responding empathetically to the beloved and acting to increase the creativity of the beloved. So to say that God is love is to say that God is the supreme expression of empathy and creativity. And this is why the Bible portrays God as both creator and redeemer. God creates us creators of ourselves, and God takes on, enjoys our accomplishments and takes on our failures, even to the point of death. Redemption is that empathetic dimension. Creation is the creative dimension. Creation is the ultimate burst of supreme love, and redemption is the ultimate liberation of the beloved. So it's time now for us to combine these two ideas of God. The God of Jesus is the true God, and the God of Jesus is best understood as Logos and as love. Again, Pope Benedict has put it this way. He says, quote, "The truly divine God is the God who has revealed himself as Logos, and as Logos has acted and continues to act lovingly on our behalf." And elsewhere, he has said simply, "This reason has a heart." We need to get our minds and our hearts around what is being said here. Logos means that reality has a point, and God is its highest example. And love means empathy and creativity. So to say that God is Logos and love is to say that reality has a point or a logic, and it is the logic of love. The highest and fullest expression of what it means to be is to feel the feelings of others and to maximize their creativity. Love is, so to speak, the reason for everything. Love is the point of the story. The Catholic worldview is reason with the heart. Everything else, as the great Thomas Aquinas is reputed to have said on his deathbed, is straw. There are obviously tremendous implications for how we ought to live if we believe that reality is reason with the heart. Catholic spirituality and Catholic social ethics are grounded in this worldview. It's not my intent today to explore the Catholic ethic. My purpose, rather, is to explore the implications of the Catholic worldview for our work here at this college. What does it mean, practically speaking, for us to be shaped by the Catholic intellectual tradition? As faculty and staff at this Catholic college, we are the guardians of its mission, and so we are responsible for thinking critically about this tradition among ourselves and with our students. M. Kathleen Cavaney, a professor from Notre Dame, puts it this way: the purpose of a Catholic institution of higher learning is to explore rigorously and with humility what it could mean for all of humanity if the basic structure of reality is indeed reason with a heart. Now, I want to say, lining up behind that does not require that you are a Catholic. But that is, so to speak, the Catholic worldview. And supporting that mission means doing something like what she's saying. What does it mean if reality is portrayed, if this is true? And you can line up behind that coming from a lot of different persuasions. So what does it mean for us as faculty and staff if the basic structure of reality is reason with the heart? I propose this as our discussion question for the follow-up conversations that I will host with you this year. And I have 4 thoughts to get us started. First, if reality is reason with the heart, then we ought to be humble optimists. Reality makes sense, and our minds have the capacity to discover it. The Apostle Paul wrote that all that may be known about God lies plain before our eyes. And this is why Catholic theology has maintained that there is a natural knowledge of God among all peoples in 2 senses. First, human beings can decipher the thumbprint of God in the cosmos. The traditional arguments for the existence of God are taking off on that insight. And second, the human conscience is at bottom the primordial human awareness of the voice of God. God's law is written in the human heart. This is natural law ethics. Human beings are dimly aware of the Logos in nature and in conscience. So the fact that there is truth and that our minds are capable of knowing it does not mean, of course, that we always have the truth unambiguously. And in fact, religious history is littered with the debris of crusades, witch hunts, sectarian wars, and so on. And that's why I say our optimism should be humble. We're on the way, not necessarily there. In pursuing truth, we must always struggle against self-interest, premature absolutes, and the domination of others. But the Catholic worldview is that while reason is wounded by sin, it is not thoroughly corrupted. The fact that human beings have wreaked havoc in the name of truth does not mean that there is no truth, any more than the fact that people drive carelessly means that there shouldn't be any cars. The basic Catholic attitude here is optimistic, not pessimistic. It's hopeful, not cynical. It's positive, not nihilistic. We need to model these attitudes and encourage them in our students. We should cultivate their desire to know. We should cultivate their instinctive yearning, their appetite for something big to hold on to. We should encourage them to develop a philosophy of life and to find their life path and to see how it is intertwined with the life paths of others. Yes, I do believe that critical thinking is an important component of higher education, but I think St. Scholastica students should also be known for their appetite for their truth and for their constructive proposals about how we solve problems. This is part of what it means to advance the Catholic mission of our college, to cultivate this notion in our students that there is something true and that they're capable of grasping it. Second, if reality is reason with the heart, then we ought to emphasize the unity and the integrity of knowledge, as well as the proper distinction of the disciplines. If God is Logos, then truth is ultimately all of a piece. Little truths lead to big truth. How sad it would be, and what a mission failure, if we graduated students who understood the parts but had no sense of the whole. The increasing specialization and fragmentation of knowledge obscures the underlying connections and the ultimate point. The digital environment overwhelms us with so much information and so much of it so trivial that we cannot concentrate on what is essential. We need a simple drink of water, but we are flooded by fire hoses. At a Catholic college, we are about teaching wisdom as well as knowledge, and we ought to build our curriculum accordingly. A Catholic college should have some explicit integrative function in the curriculum. I don't know, is it a senior seminar, a set of common texts, a signature general education program, perhaps all of them and more? However we construct it, the whole of the educational experience should be as obvious as the parts. Dignitas and clear educational outcomes are good first steps, and I encourage you to keep it up, please. Third, if reality is reason with the heart, then we ought to be sensitive to the truth wherever we find it. The early Christians wrestled with a problem. If Jesus is the decisive revelation of God, then what about all those pagans? And what about all the people who lived before Jesus? How can they be saved? The solution was to say that Jesus crystallizes the truth, which may be found all over the place in hints and shadows. Socrates and Plato, for example, they were onto the truth, and we have something to learn from them. This means that other traditions, including secular humanism and even atheism, can find a home at a Catholic college, provided they are interested in seeking the truth about human life and human destiny. This is why the Catholic tradition is Catholic. Small c. It's universal. Nothing human is alien from me. And this is why diversity is important at a Catholic college, because the truth that Christians have found in Jesus is also intimated and echoed in other cultures and other traditions. Jesus spoke of God as Father, but have we nothing to learn from the image of snuggling up to a large African Earth Mother? Fourth, if reality is reason with the heart, then Catholic colleges are committed to the education of the whole person. The Catholic worldview says that at the end of the intellectual journey is the overwhelming insight that love is the final truth. This is why we ought to cultivate empathy among our students by engaging them in exercises of moral imagination through the study of the arts and literature and history. We must practice our students in what it means to feel the feelings of others. Again, another reason why diversity is important. If love is the final truth, then engaged learning and issues of social justice are not optional in the Catholic curriculum. They are essential, because love means also increasing the opportunities for creativity, particularly among the marginalized. A precious part of the mission of Catholic education is to give voice to the voiceless. Let me summarize. I've tried to understand what the foundational belief of the Catholic faith, that the God of Jesus is the true God, means, and what it means for our work. The God of Jesus is both logos and love. The Catholic worldview is reason with a heart. All of us, faculty and staff, are entrusted with the care and the passing of this heritage to future generations. Let's spend this year exploring what it means. I've offered 4 points. To advance our Catholic mission is to adopt an attitude of humble optimism that reality makes sense and our minds can learn it and know it. To advance our Catholic mission is to support the central importance of general education and the liberal arts. To advance our Catholic mission is to seek and respect diversity. To advance our Catholic mission is to educate the whole person. There are ways that faculty can bring these attitudes to life in the classroom, and ways that all of us can model them throughout the campus. We are, in the end, engaged in sacred work. We are trying to read the mind of God, feel the divine heartbeat, and transform lives. Thank you.